Good evening. Welcome to Live United. Living United, a chance to hear about all the great programs out here in the Monadnock region that make a difference in the lives of our citizens. Today I'm joined by Greg Burdett. Greg is the head of Big Brothers Big Sisters here in New Hampshire, and we're going to talk a little bit about why it's now New Hampshire-wide and how they've joined together to really have more impact on young people's lives here in the Monadnock region. Greg is one of the recipients of funding through United Way, and last week people had an opportunity to hear about our campaign. And this is a great example of where your donation goes when you give through the United Way. So welcome, Greg.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
You know, Big Brothers Big Sisters has been through some pretty major change over the course of the last year and a half, couple of years. And you're at the helm now.
Yes. So, as you may or may not know, Big Brothers Big Sisters in the state of New Hampshire consisted of 4 separate entities: Portsmouth, Nashua, Manchester, and Keene. And many of those agencies have existed for almost 50 years. And at one point, about 5 years ago, a group of board members from the various regions got together and with the help of the national organization, decided that rather than competing against each other as agencies, we may want to band together. We may find some efficiencies, consolidating back office functions, going after some larger funders. That process took a number of years. I was actually on the local board at that time and was asked to serve on the statewide board that looked at that merger. Ultimately, the merger was completed in January of 2015, and we became one entity known as Big Brothers Big Sisters of New Hampshire. So that took place then. Our headquarters is located in Manchester, but we remain visible, and we have offices in Keene, Nashua, and Portsmouth as well.
So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think for our citizens here, they're always interested in knowing that, you know, they want to know for sure that whatever they're giving or volunteering for, and I know there's always a need for bigs, that it's remaining local.
Yeah. I'm local. I live in Westmoreland, so obviously this region and this agency is very near and dear to my heart. And I can assure you that money that's raised here in this community stays here in this community. As of today, we serve over 200 children in this region. Sadly, we have about 30 kids in this region who are on our waiting list. And our waiting list means that those are children that have gone through the interview process, they've signed up, and they're just waiting for a big to be matched with. And unfortunately, about 80%, not only here in this region but across the country, of these littles are boys. We seem to have a tremendous problem attracting men to be bigs. So across the state, we have about 300 children, and over 80% of those are boys. But certainly in the Monadnock region, we are very active. We also participate in what are known as site-based programs. So we're really at just about every local school in the region. We have programs where bigs will come into the school and mentor youth. So our impact is pretty impressive here in this region.
And I know you also have the college, at least Keene State, involved.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Franklin Pierce, but the college is very involved in serving as bigs.
Yeah, they really are. Keene State has done a tremendous job. They actually have a bigs club that's headed by a young gentleman, and they're a very active organization, and they serve as mentors. They help us with match activities. And one of the neat things that happened in this past year, the coach of the Keene State basketball team made it a requirement that all of his players be bigs. And that was a really neat opportunity for those young men to serve. We've now taken that program and kind of extended it throughout the university system. I had the pleasure of meeting with Dick Umili, the UNH hockey coach, a few months ago, and they want to mirror the program. So we're pretty excited about what Keene State has done.
That is
Yeah.
very, very exciting. You know, I'm going to ask, you have a very unique story about how you got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters and the evolution in your life of
Sure.
your involvement with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm going to ask you to share that because I want people to hear, particularly because you struggle to find the male Big Brothers. And I know you struggle for Big Sisters as well. So there's not a lack of kids who are looking for someone to spend time with them. But I think sometimes people don't know that they become part of your life.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to share your story.
Sure. I grew up in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Not exactly Keene, New Hampshire. It was a tough urban part of Boston, and I was the child of a single mom who really struggled. No dad, never met him. But my mother had the forethought to connect with what was a brand new agency in Boston at the time. It was actually just Big Brothers then. There were no Big Sisters. But she put me into the program, and I was matched with an amazing young man who was actually a nurse at St. Elizabeth's Hospital, one of the first male nurses back in those days. This was back in the 60s. And that relationship continued throughout my adolescence. Unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was 14, so I was essentially orphaned. And had it not been for the relationship I had with my big, who really did everything with me. Being a kid growing up in the housing projects in Boston, I wasn't exposed to a lot of things. And my big brother took me to my first ball game at Fenway Park, took me to the Museum of Fine Arts, took me to his home to do things like raking leaves, which was kind of a foreign thing for me. And one of the stories I tell to this day is I cannot go into a restaurant and leave a tip without thinking of my big brother, because my big brother is the person who taught me that, when you're in a restaurant, and this was back at the Woolworths counter back in Boston 50 years ago, how to leave a tip. And of course, back then it was 10%, and it's a little more today. But those are things that a mentor does. It's the impact that he's had on my life is just unbelievable. So I wouldn't be where I am today without that relationship.
I've talked with folks that have been on from Big Brothers Big Sisters in the past because I still have a relationship with my little sister from when I was a big sister in high school. And it started in high school, and even though I went off to college, I continued contact with her, and I get regular updates on her life. And it's very simple things that you do with these folks. We still have contact, and she now has children. But it was going to the playground. It was, playing games. It was board games. Having them over for a picnic at the house. And these were all things that they just weren't having that opportunity for in their day-to-day life. So it was a great social piece, and she talks to this day about how it helped her get through some very difficult situations in her life as she was growing up. And I think as she went through her puberty and everything else, it gave her someone she could really talk with and have a relationship with, because her situation was a little bit different. She only had her dad in her life, so she didn't have a female role model in her case. So it's a powerful relationship that goes on. And and look at you now, you're the head of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and you went through a life experience that changed.
It's all we ask in the relationship, we ask for a minimum of 2 hours twice a month. Now I can tell you that 90+% of our bigs do a lot more than 2 hours twice a month. But if somebody has that availability to spend time, with a child between the ages of 6 and 17 who is currently living in an at-risk situation. Could be a single parent, could be a household that's not functioning properly. We're seeing more and more children of incarcerated parents. That epidemic seems to be growing in the state. These children really have, in many cases, no stable role model, and they need somebody that can mentor them. And I find, having taken this job about a year ago almost, in meeting people throughout the state, it's amazing how many people used to be bigs, like yourself, and the impact that it's had on their lives. In most cases, I really believe the bigs have gotten more out of the relationship than the littles, because they speak so glowingly about their time. And I've got bigs now that are on their third and fourth little, because as you know, once they reach 18, they officially leave the program, although those relationships typically continue. But a lot of bigs will then move on and take up a new little. One of the things we're seeing today, and I'm seeing a lot of this, are couples that are kind of from my vintage, whose last child may be out of college, and they suddenly find themselves as empty nesters, yet they are still vibrant and they have so much to give. I'm seeing a lot of those couples, and we do couples matches, joining the program. I just had the president of a bank in Manchester, and he and his wife have joined the program, and I can't tell you how delighted they are that they've done this. It has changed their lives, and I just think of the littles that they have. They have a brother and a sister. The impact that they're making on their lives is just tremendous.
That's interesting, because I didn't realize you did the couples
Yeah.
matching. So you talked about the impact on the people that are serving in the role of being a big, but the impact on these young people is just tremendous. You talked about, some of them are coming from families where there may be trauma in their lives, family may be incarcerated. For these kids, having that stability and having that social connection and that good role modeling, how does it make a difference in their lives?
Well, we have, I could bore you to death with statistics, but statistics don't lie. And we do a number of surveys throughout the year with the child and their family, as well as some leading national organizations survey us across the country. And the statistics are pretty compelling. We know that 47% of children in our program are less likely to start using alcohol. 28% are less likely to start using illegal drugs. 51% are less likely to skip school. We know that children in our program have much higher self-esteem, they have a much higher graduation rate, and they go on to college. So, the impacts are profound, not to mention just having that person. We've got a lot of kids, especially in different parts of the state, that aren't reading at the appropriate level, aren't necessarily getting the nutrition that they should. And our bigs make a big difference. We have a corporate program in Manchester with a company that kids come into. It's called a site-based program, and the kids come in twice a month. They get off the bus right at the company, and there are 24 bigs waiting at the company, and they greet these children. They feed them, they work with them, they do homework with them, and these kids look so forward to that we actually have children who aren't in the program trying to sneak on the bus to get in the program.
That's great. And
I would love to introduce some of those programs here in the Monadnock region to some of the larger companies. It's an incredible benefit to the employees to allow them to volunteer and take an hour and a half twice a month to work with kids in the workplace. It's amazing what it does for your employees as well as those children.
While we're talking, I'm going to have Dave pull up information on how to reach out to you. So if a corporation wants to reach out to you about setting that program up for its employees, what a great thing to do. But if an individual wants to be a
Yeah.
big brother or a big sister, or may even have a child that they think could benefit from having a big brother or a big sister, the information will be at the bottom of the screen for people on how to contact big brothers, big sisters. You can also contact Monadnock United Way. But I want to have time to talk about some events you have coming up.
Sure.
Because you, much like the United Way, in our last show we talked about this, you live by your volunteers, which are bigs, but you also have to have funding that supports all these different things that go on and maintain this relationship between a big brother, big sister, properly trains them. Because you have a significant training program, I believe, that people go through to be a
Yeah.
big brother, big sister.
Yeah, we do. On average, it costs about $1,200 to make a match. Obviously, we do an extensive background check locally, regionally, and nationally on everyone who's in our program. We also do a tremendous amount of interviewing between the child and the adult and making sure that the match is right. And obviously, that costs money. While we get a tremendous amount of funding from the Monadnock United Way, for which we are very grateful, we still need to make more money. So we do a number of events throughout the year, throughout the state. September is a busy month for us. One of the things that we have coming up on September 15th up in Enfield, New Hampshire, is our annual golf tournament. And that's at Montcalm Golf Club, which is a magnificent golf course. If you're a golfer out there, you know a little bit about that course. So we're going to be hosting a golf event on the 15th. And then over in Dover, on the 23rd, we have our Big Bash, which is a great night out for folks. I know it's a little far away from here, but you can get a room and make a night of it. It's an amazing event that we have over in the Mill District in Dover, and we raise a tremendous amount of money throughout the year, for that. So we're constantly running events, but right now, our biggest need is bigs, and we can be reached at bbbsnh.org. Just go to our website and it'll connect you to where you need to go if you're interested in being a big. We'll make it easy for you.
So, folks, I want to, Greg, first I want to thank you for joining us. Big brothers, big sisters, close to a lot of people's hearts and making a difference in our children's lives. I want to thank you, audience, for joining us. I want to remind you that you can not only give to great programs like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, either through the United Way or directly through one of their fundraising events, but to volunteer, desperate need out there for big brothers especially, but also big sisters. And what a great opportunity for all of you. And always remember to advocate, to live united, because you're the ones that, joining together with folks like Greg, make a difference in the lives of all of our citizens. Thanks for joining us.